With me now is Keith Webb, head of TMT at RMB. Thanks very much for your time. Let's talk about investing in TMT in this low growth environment, Keith.
When there is a low growth environment, you always wonder where you should spend your time, energy, and money. And really, the TMT sector offers quite good opportunities right now for GDP enhancing investment.
What is the key, though? I mean, if you think about it, there's no economic growth. How are we going to suddenly see acceleration in the TMT environment?
Well, I don't think it's overnight, but the whole premise of the sector is investing in efficiency gains. Whether it is, instead of jumping in your car to drive to a meeting, you can just as easily video conference. Instead of flying, 24 hours overseas, a video conference gives you the same sort of benefit.
What about the environment, the investment environment? What have we got available to us when it comes to the actual companies out there?
So, look, if we take a step back, where we are economically, both in South Africa particularly, but also across the continent, is the government doesn't have money to spend to invest and grow the economy. We can't just play with interest rates because if we reduce the interest rates, we don't have foreign investors who are interested. So really, it is all about investing in these sort of efficiency gains and improving as I say, the efficiency of the economy. Specific investment opportunities, as I say, we look to the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, to understand what is a digital ecosystem and what are the elements of that. I think if we break it into three specific categories, the first one, I think we quite understand connectivity. We understand rolling out fiber, we understand rolling out broadband, mobile broadband. So that's quite well understood. Not to say that we're there. There's a lot.
Well, I was going to say, we're a little bit behind the curve when it comes to rolling out broadband.
We are and we aren't. A lot of the international markets look to South Africa to how we do fiber. Funnily enough, we're quite advanced in rolling out fiber to the home. But broadband connectivity is almost the initial economic enhancer that we need to get access to a broader sector of the population. So that's one. The second element is certainly around the regulatory side. Again, not the easiest thing, but it costs the least. And I think we across the continent need to move from having a regulator that sort of sets the rules and then acts like the police to moving much more towards a sort of a working together model as to how do we collectively, both between the regulator and the sector, get what we need.
In the South African environment,
Both.
What about the regulatory aspects? Is that not a deterrent to investment in the TMT space?
Again, it's moving forward rapidly now, but both in South Africa and across the continent, the regulatory frameworks are fairly standard internationally. They're well understood and well recognized, but it's exactly how the regulator interfaces with the sector. Not again just sitting in ivory towers and laying down the law and being the police, but actually working together to improve the sector.
Are we seeing that happening in South Africa?
I think now, yes, absolutely. As I say, things are moving forward a lot quicker in South Africa. I think the rest of the continent needs to keep up, and that's in comparison to the world. And there are benchmarks that the ITU does do in comparison to the rest of the world.
We're speaking about the digital ecosystem. We're on the regulatory environment. Is there anything else that we need to take into consideration?
Regulatory-wise, look, I think we're okay. As I say, we've got the frameworks in place, but it's a way of working. The third aspect, I think, is very much bringing Africa into the 21st century. So once we've got all this connectivity, are we just using what the rest of the world is pushing at us, whether it's the Amazon services, the Googles, et cetera, where are we on the continent at developing local content, developing programming, developing applications that are useful in our context? And that to me is the big missing chunk. There's a huge amount of economy and business that sits in the rest of the world in that space. And I don't think we have that on the
What is it going to take to unlock opportunities in that production, the local content, the applications?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is skills. I don't think the skills are as hard to come by as they were in the past. I think one can access a lot internationally in terms of education, but it's having those formal education systems, and then having companies that spend the capital, spend the money, invest in the people to upskill people to use these new digital techniques.
Big buzzwords in the TMT industry right now: cloud, data centers. Where do you stand on that front?
Yeah. So people, as soon as you talk cloud, everybody gets esoteric and doesn't really know what it means. But a big enabler of cloud services is having a data center, which is just a big specialized building where you house a whole lot of servers. Instead of having servers in your basement, you'll have a specialized service provider where you can actually put your servers. What enables that, of course, is the high-speed connectivity, the fiber connectivity. So that is what's happening right now, both in South Africa and West and East Africa. Having these big data centers is really what enables cloud services. You can have specialized servers sitting there that you can just rent. Instead of having to buy the stuff yourself, you can rent either the physical infrastructure or the software or even the applications that are sitting on those servers. And that's what cloud services means.
If we go back to investing in the TMT environment in a low growth economy, where are the opportunities right now that you see? And I know it's difficult for you to name companies per se, but perhaps you can give a little direction in terms of where we can start.
Yeah, sure. So we see a lot of, as I said, the fiber players, in South Africa, the Boomers, the dark fibers, they roll out quite substantially. Across the continent, we've got players like Liquid who roll out fiber, and they will continue to do so. There's a lot of capital that's behind those players. They're well known. So that's on the fiber side. On the broadband side, the mobile broadband side, again, we've got big players, and these are useful companies that we as banks can send capital into, because that's what they do. They roll out mobile networks. And we increasingly hope that they not only roll out voice networks, but roll out 3G, 4G, 5G networks. We have niche players who focus on 5G networks or 4G, 5G networks, players like Rain. And also we like to support them in rolling out these sort of real cutting-edge networks, very, very high-speed data networks, mobile. You don't need fiber. So that's on the sort of connectivity side. We also see a big infrastructure layer, and that's an efficiency layer. So towers, trying to encourage people to share towers, to share ducting networks. That's very much a big theme for us as well. And that also cheapens the cost of rolling out this infrastructure, because they're sharing the same capital infrastructure. And the same is true on spectrum, and it's a funny one to think about, but there's a lot of spectrum which sits out there which is not fully utilized. And there's a certain element of sharing of spectrum that could certainly improve efficiencies.